What's up guys, Zami here and you're watching Heavy Metal Pomp. I know it's been a while but today I'm back with another Game Boy mod video. I've had this pink Game Boy Advance sitting around for a while and I figured it's due for an upgrade. I've already cleaned it all up off camera many months back and it works perfectly fine as it is. All it needs is some new parts to breathe new life into it. This isn't a sponsored video but I want to give a huge shout out to the folks at eXtremeRate for sending me a replacement shell and buttons for this build. The shell is this beautiful pearlescent blue and purple and even came with a glass lens included. The buttons they sent me is this polished gold color, so expect a very loud looking Game Boy at the end. To bring the whole build together, I also got this IPS LCD to give it a much needed upgrade. Now truth be told, I actually ordered one of those drop-in IPS LCDs for the GBA, but the company sent me the wrong one. Luckily, the eXtremeRate shell that was sent to me is already pre-cut for bigger IPS LCDs, which worked out for me in the end. I'll also try to include links to all the parts I got in the description down below. With that said, let's just dive into the build. First off, you're gonna have to open up the GBA. There's 6 tri-wing screws on the back to open and 1 Phillips head screw in the battery compartment. Once you undo those screws, the back should just come off easily. Next, undo the 2 to 3 Phillips head screws on the motherboard itself and loosen the bail lock for the LCD ribbon cable up top. Once done, the motherboard should just come off easily. Because I have replacement shells and buttons, the motherboard is all I need for this build. This is also going to be your best opportunity to clean up the contacts on the motherboard if you've not already done so. Now, let's start assembling the build. I'm gonna start by fixing on the glass lens on the front housing. Just peel off the protective layer and paste it in, pretty straightforward. Next up, let's drop in the IPS LCD into the housing. Now the kit did include this adhesive gasket to help stick the LCD in place, but mine arrived all messed up, so it was pretty much unusable at this point. I tried to adjust and fix it, but I ended up just scrapping it. You don't really need it anyways, but it does help to align the panel. I just put in the 2 plastic spacers they included. The thicker one goes at the bottom and the thinner one goes on the left. This will help align the LCD to be properly centered in the window. After that, just peel off the protective film on the LCD and drop it in gently. Next is to connect the ribbon cable to the LCD. It just snaps in really easily, shouldn't be too difficult to do. After that is something I should have probably done before connecting the cable, and that was to prep all the solder points on the ribbon cable itself. I believe this is an optional step though. What these connections will enable is for you to adjust the LCD brightness once it's all done. You can skip this step if you're lazy, but it's also really easy to do as well. I just put some solder on the L, R and select points and then just connected wires to those points. Just make sure the wires have some extra length for later on. After that, I just put some Kapton tape on the ribbon cable so that it doesn't move around, and then I started putting in all the buttons and membranes in their respective locations. Once that's done, I connected the ribbon cable to the motherboard. The ribbon cable is universal as it has both the 32 and 40 pin ends on it. Just make sure you connect the right one to your motherboard. As mine's a 32 pin model, that's the side of the ribbon cable that I connected. If you're connecting the solder points, the wire running from select has to connect to point TP2 on the motherboard. After that, you can flip the motherboard and just screw it down onto the front housing. Next is to connect the L and R solder points to the respective wires. This is where using different colored wires will help. My yellow wire is for L and blue wire is for R. I just trimmed it down a bit, soldered it down to the connections, and that's really just it. After that, I just put in the shoulder buttons, bumpers and power button in, and I was ready to screw the back housing in place. Don't forget to add the back label for the finishing touch. Pop some batteries in, peel off the film on the glass lens and turn it on to see if it all works. And presto! Here's me testing the brightness control, and it seems to work just fine. Before I end, let's talk about the parts in use. Let's start with all the aesthetics of the build. Usually, aftermarket parts are known to be of cheaper quality, but these shell and buttons from eXtremeRate are no slouch. They feel really good and sturdy and just look absolutely stunning. I love how the pearlescent shell changes colors under different lighting. The gold buttons also feel really good. I've had my fair share of shitty aftermarket buttons and these definitely aren't bad. I'm also super impressed with the gold buttons they use for the start and select, which are normally made from rubber. The holofoil logo on the lens is also just a really nice touch to tie the whole build together. As for the IPS LCD, there's really not much to say about it. It's bright, it's clean, and it obviously looks miles better than the original GBA LCD. Personally, I'm still a bigger fan of how an AGS 101 looks, but an IPS LCD still looks absolutely stunning. Overall, I'm super happy with how this turned out. Even though the company sent me the wrong IPS LCD and the aesthetics are a bit loud for my personal taste, I actually really enjoy this build. Although it's a really simple build without too many bells and whistles, this is honestly all you need to enjoy playing GBA games. I now have a good reason to finally crack on playing Pokemon Leaf Green. And before I go off, I just want to thank eXtremeRate once again for sending me the replacement parts, and to you guys for watching till the end of the video. So yeah, I think that's about it. Hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube nonsense, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.